Falcons, this is Mrs. Lamb, and today we're going to be doing lesson 19 on expanding and factoring. It starts on page 321 in your workbook, so if you could take some notes starting there. We're going to start with the number talk. I want you to find the value of each of these expressions mentally and record your answers to the side, and then come back and we will talk about these. So on number 1, hopefully you remembered that by order of operations we need to multiply before we add. So this would be 2 plus 12 or 14. And on the second expression, the parentheses tell us that we need to do an operation inside of parentheses first. So we would have 3 plus 2 or 5 times. When two parentheses are next to each other, that means times. So 5 times 4, which is 20. And then on the third expression, again, we multiply before we subtract. So we have 2 minus 12 or negative 10. And on the last situation, remember when you have a negative outside of a parenthesis, it's kind of like multiplying by -1 or finding the opposite. So you could have, this would be the same as 2 minus 3 minus 4 or 2 minus 7. Either way you want to look at that, and you would get -5. All right, so just some reminders about how parentheses work and what they might mean in an expression. So if you turn to the next activity, 19.2, we are factoring and expanding with negative numbers. So using those area models again, we are given 3 area models for the first 3 problems, and it shows you how to set them up. So factored, I know that -3 times 5 minus 2y are the 2 terms in the parentheses. If I expand it and multiply that out, I would have -3 times 5 or -15, and -3 times a -2y would be a positive 6y, so -15 plus 6y. So then doing the same for the second row, you would have 5 on the outside, and your 2 terms are a and -6. So when I expand, you would get 5a, and 5 times -6 is -30. So expanded, that would just be 5a minus 30. Now it gets tricky. We have the expanded form and we want to come back. So you fill in your boxes this time, 6a and -2b. And what can I factor out? What's the same in both of these boxes? Well, I think they're both divisible by 2. So I could bring the 2 out. And if I take 6a, would be 2 times what? Well, it'd be 2 times 3a would give me 6a. And then 2 times what would give me -2b? Well, I need a negative and a b. So expanded form, 2 is what I brought on the outside. I factored out a 2, and I'm left with 3a minus b. So we're working backwards when we do that. So keep in mind, anytime you need a diagram, you might be able to expand without the diagrams. And then when you come back, I want you to work them the other way. So if you could go ahead and complete your chart and put the answers into the questions for your ed puzzle. And then we'll come back and work these. Okay, so on the next one, you take -4 times 2w, which would be -8w. And a -4 times a -5 would be a positive 20z. If you were to do your boxes, you would have the -4 on the outside. I have 2 terms. I have 2w and -5z. So again, if you look at the boxes, it'd be -8w, positive 20z. That's where that came from. On the next one, you would have a -1 on the outside. Remember, when there's nothing there, it's always a 1. And then you had 2x and -3y. So I'd take, and I'd get -2x, and -1 times -3 is a positive 3y. So it'd be negative 2x plus 3y. Now I have to think. This is the expanded form, so I have my 3 boxes filled in. There's 20x, there's negative 10y, and 15z that's positive. What number can I take out of 20, 10, and 15? Well, they're all 3 divisible by 5, right? So you can take 5 out. 5 times 4 gives me 20, so that's a 4x. 5 times what gives me negative 10, or you're dividing. Negative 10 divided by 5 gives me a negative 2y. And 15 divided by 5 would give me 3z. So I have a 5 on the outside for my factored form. I took out a 5 and I'm left with 4x minus 2y plus 3z. Maybe you don't need the box to expand. You should start to get the feel of this without using the boxes. 4 times k is 4k. And then k times 17, and this is a negative, would be negative 17k. So 4k minus 17k. Look at 10 and 13a. What can I factor out? What's the same in both of those terms? An a, right? There is no number that goes into 10 and 13, but I can take an a out, which would leave me 10 here. 10 times a is 10a, and negative 13 there. So then what we did was factored out an a, and we still had 10 minus 13. If you go to expand here, you took out a negative 2x on the outside. We multiplied by a 3y and a negative z. So you get 3 times negative 2 would be a negative 6xy. And a negative times a negative is a positive 2xz. Right? When you have numbers or letters next to each other, it just means that you are multiplying them. So now my expanded form was negative 6xy plus 2xz. When you look to see what's the same in the next problem, we got over 3 boxes. We have AB, a negative BC, and a negative 3BD. Well, there's a B in every box that I can take out, which leaves me A, negative C, and negative 3D. So I took out a B, and I have A minus C minus 3D. Okay, now I'm working the other direction again. I have negative x, looking for what will go in my boxes, and I have 3y, negative z, and 4w. Those are my 3 terms that are inside the parentheses. This would be negative 3xy. And then a negative times a negative would be a positive xz, and a negative times a positive would be a negative 4xw. So when I expand that, I get a negative 3xy plus xz minus 4xw. All right. So hopefully eventually you can do these without using the boxes, but if the boxes and the diagrams help you, then please continue to use those. It's a pattern to all of them. And go ahead and stop and freeze and take notes if you need to here. Okay. Just if you look at the summary on the next page, of your workbook. The terms of the product go on the inside. So after we multiply, what we would get would be on the inside. And then you look at the expressions and you think about a factor they have in common. What can I divide both 12 and 8 by evenly? Well, the number would be 4. So I bring the 4 to the outside, and then we divide. So 12x divided by 4 would give me 3x. And negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. Or you can think, what times 4 gives me 12? That's another way to think of that. So 12x minus 8 is going to be equivalent to 4 times 3x minus 2. So this is called factoring when you bring a factor on the outside. All right, today guys, you are going to do the practice for lesson 19, starts on page 324, and we're going to do 1 through 3, 5, and 6. Have a good day, Falcons.